The great hall stretched out like a vast ocean of metal and glass. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim looked up at the ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. He had been coming to these meetings for 3 long months, and each time the alien representatives made him feel smaller and smaller. Today was different, though. Today felt final. Hyunwoo sat at the human table, a simple metal desk that looked tiny compared to the massive platforms where the alien species positioned themselves. Next to him sat Ji-Hai Park, Terra's military representative. Her uniform was crisp and clean, but her eyes showed the tiredness they both felt. Across from them, the real powers of the galaxy made their presence known. The Vorthak Empire took up the largest space. High Chancellor Velthara looked like a walking crystal formation, her body made of what seemed like living diamond. Light moved through her form in patterns that hurt human eyes to follow. When she spoke, her voice sounded like breaking glass mixed with wind chimes. "The time for discussion has ended," Velthara announced. Her words echoed through the chamber, bouncing off walls that were designed to make every species feel small except the ones in charge. "Humanity has had months to consider our generous terms. Today, you will accept them or face the consequences." To her left sat the representative of the Zalani collective. Queen Zaraseth looked like a giant insect crossed with a flower. Her compound eyes reflected light in a way that made it impossible to tell where she was looking. The buzzing sound she made when thinking filled the air like angry bees. "The terms are simple," Zaraseth said, her voice coming from speakers built into her throat. "Humanity will abandon 80% of their colonies. The worlds you may keep will be chosen by this council. Your military fleet will be surrendered to our custody. Earth will accept guidance from appointed overseers who will help your species develop properly." Hyunwoo felt his jaw clench. 3 months of this. 3 months of being told that humanity was too young, too reckless, too dangerous to be trusted with their own future. They called it guidance. He called it slavery, with better words. Ji-Hye leaned forward slightly. "And in return?" she asked, though they both knew the answer. In return, Velthara's crystal form pulsed with what might have been amusement. "Earth will not be reduced to ash. Your species will continue to exist under proper supervision. This is more mercy than you deserve." The Trelawney Federation representative, a being that looked like a walking tree made of metal, added his voice to the demands. "Humanity has expanded too quickly. In 100 years, you have claimed more territory than most species acquire. In 1,000. This cannot continue. You have built weapons," said Admiral Kickstar of the Hegemony Navy. The insect-like creature's mandibles clicked as he spoke. "Ships designed for war, not exploration. This shows your true nature." Hyunwoo stood up slowly. His chair made a small scraping sound that seemed loud in the vast chamber. Every alien eye, sensor, and optical device turned toward him. He could feel the weight of their attention like a physical force pressing down on his shoulders. "We came here in good faith," he said. His voice was calm, steady. Ji-Hai had always admired that about him. Even when everything was falling apart, Hyunwoo never lost his composure. "We believed this council wanted real peace. We thought you wanted to work together." "You thought wrong," Queen Zaraseth buzzed. "Humans are children playing with weapons. They do not understand. You expand without permission. You build without asking. You take resources from worlds that belong to the galaxy, not to any single species." "Which worlds?" Ji-Hai asked. Name one world we have taken that belonged to someone else. There was silence. The aliens looked at each other through whatever senses they used. Hyunwoo knew they could not answer because humanity had been careful. Every world they had settled was empty. Every resource they used came from places where no one else had staked a claim. That is not the point, Velthera said finally. The point is that you did not ask permission. You did not seek guidance. You acted as if you had the right to make these decisions alone. We do have that right, Hyunwoo said. Every species has the right to grow, to explore, to build their future. We have never attacked anyone. We have never taken anything that belonged to others. We have offered trade, friendship, cooperation, and you answer with ultimatums. Because you cannot be trusted, Admiral Kickstar clicked. Your species is violent. Your history is nothing but war. Planet after planet covered in the blood of your own kind. And now you bring that violence to the galaxy. Ji-Hai felt anger rising in her chest. Our history is survival, she said. We learned to fight because we had to. We learned to build because we needed shelter. We learned to reach for the stars because staying on one world meant death when the next disaster came. Exactly. Queen Zaraseth's buzz grew louder. You are a species shaped by violence and fear. You see enemies everywhere because that is what you are inside. The galaxy needs protection from that kind of thinking. Hyunwoo looked around the chamber. Representatives from dozens of species watched the exchange. Some seemed bored, as if this was just another day of business. Others appeared nervous, shifting in their seats or adjusting their breathing apparatus. A few looked almost sad, like they wish things could be different. Is this what the galaxy has become? Hyunwoo asked. The strong telling the weak how to live? The old deciding what the young may do? We thought we were joining a community of equals. Instead, we find a system designed to keep new voices silent. You are not equal, Velthara said. Her crystal form flared brighter. Equality must be earned, proven. Your species has proven only that it cannot be trusted with freedom. Then we are done here. The words came out quietly, but in the massive chamber they seemed to echo forever. Hyunwoo began gathering his papers and data tablets. His movements were slow, deliberate. There was no anger in his actions, no dramatic gestures. He simply packed up his materials like a businessman finishing a meeting. You cannot simply leave, Queen Zaraseth said. Her buzz took on a higher pitch. The council has made its decision. You will accept our terms. No, Hyunwoo said without looking up. We will not. Ji-Hai stood as well. She had been waiting for this moment for weeks. Every day of negotiations had made it clearer that the aliens had no interest in real peace. They wanted submission disguised with diplomatic language. Think carefully about what you are doing, Admiral Kickstar warned. The galaxy is vast. Humanity is small. You cannot stand against all of us. We are not standing against anyone, Ji-Hai said. We are simply refusing to kneel. The same thing, Velthera said coldly. Hyunwoo finished packing his materials. He looked up at the assembled aliens one last time. Perhaps, he said, but it is our choice to make. Your choice will bring consequences, Queen Zaraseth said. Military consequences. We will not allow a rogue species to threaten galactic stability. Then you will do what you think you must, Hyunwoo replied, and we will do the same. The two humans walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the silence that had fallen over the chamber. No one tried to stop them. No one called out warnings or made threats. The aliens simply watched as humanity walked away from the negotiating table. As they reached the door, Hyunwoo paused. He turned back to look at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. "You made one mistake," he said. "You assumed we came here because we were afraid. We came here because we hoped. Hope dies much harder than fear." The door closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the chamber, nervous whispers began to spread from table to table. Some representatives seemed relieved that the troublesome humans were gone. Others looked worried about what would come next. Queen Zaraseth's buzz filled the air. "They will return," she said. "When they see our fleets approaching, their worlds, they will come back begging for the terms they rejected today." "And if they do not?" asked a small voice from the back of the chamber. Velthara's crystal form pulsed with confident light. "Then they will learn why the galaxy needs order, why the strong must guide the weak, why some species are meant to rule and others to serve." But as the human transport ship lifted off from the council station and disappeared into hyperspace, a few of the older, wiser representatives felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. They had seen this before. They had watched young species pushed too far, forced to choose between submission and resistance. Most chose submission. Those who chose resistance usually died quickly, but sometimes, very rarely, a species surprised everyone. And humans, they were beginning to realize, were very good at surprises. 3 weeks had passed since the humans walked out of the peace talks. 3 weeks of silence from Earth and all their colonies. The Galactic Council had expected panic by now. They had expected desperate messages begging for another chance at negotiations. Instead, they got nothing. High Chancellor Velthara stood in the center of the Council's war room, her crystal body reflecting the light from dozens of holographic displays. Each display showed a different human world, and what they showed made no sense. "Explain this to me again," she said to Admiral Kickstar. Her voice carried the sharp edge of confusion mixed with growing irritation. The insectoid admiral's mandibles clicked nervously. "Our spy satellites show massive construction projects on every human world. They are building something, but we cannot determine what." The holographic displays zoomed in on human colonies. New Sol showed enormous factories rising from the ground like metal mountains. Massive transport ships moved between the surface and orbital stations. The amount of activity was staggering. "Defense platforms?" suggested Queen Zaraseth. Her compound eyes studied the images with the intensity of a predator watching prey. "That was our first thought," Admiral Kickstar replied. "But the energy signatures are wrong. These structures are too large, too complex for simple defensive installations." Director So Young Choi would have smiled if she could see this conversation. She stood on the observation deck of the New Sol primary construction hub, watching as another massive module lifted off toward orbit. Around her, thousands of human workers and automated systems worked around the clock. The aliens were right about one thing. Humans were building something. They were building everything. So Young had been in charge of the Colonial Defense Initiative for 5 years. The job had always been theoretical before now. Humans had never needed to defend themselves against alien attack. But So Young was a planner, and planners prepared for situations they hoped would never come. "Status report," she said into her communication device. "Orbital Platform 7 is now online," came the reply from Station Commander Min-Soo Park. "That brings us to 43 defensive platforms in this system alone. All weapon systems are operational. And the factories? Running at 110% capacity. We will have full production capability within the week. So, Young nodded. The aliens thought they were dealing with a desperate species building last-minute defenses. They had no idea that humans had been preparing for this possibility since their first day in space. Back in the council chambers, the debate continued. Representative after representative stood to offer their theories about human behavior. Most assumed panic. Some suggested defiance. None understood the truth. Perhaps, said Ambassador Kixnil of the Trilani Federation, we should consider diplomatic contact again. The humans seemed reasonable during the negotiations. Queen Zara Seth's buzz grew louder. Reasonable? They walked away from generous terms. They chose conflict over cooperation. This is not reasonable behavior. They chose freedom over slavery, said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. All eyes turned toward the speaker. Research Coordinator Nex Thule of the Historical Preservation Syndicate rarely spoke during council sessions. The ancient being preferred to observe and record rather than participate. What did you say? Velthera demanded. I have been studying human historical records, Nex Thule said. His voice carried the weight of centuries. This species has faced extinction many times. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, plague, famine, war. Each time they adapted. Each time they survived. Your point? Admiral Kickstar clicked impatiently. My point is that we may have misunderstood their rapid expansion. We saw it as reckless aggression. But looking at their history, it appears to be survival strategy. They spread across the galaxy the same way their ancestors spread across their home planet. Not for conquest, but for survival. The chamber fell. Quiet. This was not the kind of analysis most representatives wanted to hear. It suggested that humans might be more than the primitive warmongers they had been painted as. Even if that is true, Velthara said, it changes nothing. They are still a threat to galactic stability. They still refuse to accept proper guidance. Captain, Dongmin Li listened to this conversation from his hiding place in the asteroid field outside the council station. His ship, the Silent Dawn, was invisible to alien sensors. Human stealth technology was one of their best-kept secrets. Dongmin had been monitoring alien communications for months. What he heard confirmed his worst fears. The aliens were not just planning military action. They were planning to eliminate humanity as a threat to their vision of galactic order. Command, this is Silent Dawn, he transmitted on a secure channel. Alien fleet movements confirm Operation Hammerfall is moving forward. Estimated time to first strike is 2 weeks. The response came from Admiral Minho Han on Earth. Understood, Silent Dawn. Continue monitoring. Do not engage unless directly threatened. Dongmin understood the order, but part of him wished he could do more than just watch. The aliens had no idea that humans had been listening to their communications, tracking their fleet movements, studying their weaknesses. They thought they held all the advantages. They were about to learn otherwise. On the human colony of New Busan, Commander Tae-Jin Yu supervised the final preparations for what everyone hoped would never come. The planet's population had grown from 2 million to 10 million in just 3 weeks. But these were not refugees fleeing danger. These were engineers, soldiers, technicians, and industrial workers volunteering for the most dangerous assignment in human space. Sir, reported Lieutenant Hya Jin Kim, the orbital defense grid is complete. All mining platforms have been converted to weapons platforms. The asteroid field has been seeded with gravity mines. Tae-Jin nodded. New Busan had been chosen as the testing ground for human defensive strategy. If it worked here, it could be duplicated on every human world. If it failed, it might be the first and last time humans got to show what they could do. "What about civilian evacuation?" he asked. "Sir, there are no civilians here anymore. Everyone on the planet is military or essential personnel. Everyone volunteered to stay." That was the part that impressed Taejin most. When Earth Command had asked for volunteers to defend New Busan, they had expected a few thousand brave souls. Instead, they got millions. Entire families had volunteered. Scientists, farmers, teachers, doctors, all asking for the chance to prove that humanity would not go quietly into the dark. Back on Earth, President Yoon Ji-sung addressed the global parliament. The chamber was packed with representatives from every human nation and colony. For the first time in decades, there were no empty seats. "Fellow humans," she began, "we stand at a crossroads. 3 weeks ago, our ambassadors walked away from negotiations that would have ended our freedom. Today, we face the consequences of that choice." The chamber was silent. Everyone knew what was coming. "Alien fleets are mobilizing. Their intention is to force us to accept terms we cannot live with. They believe that fear will make us surrender. They believe that our youth as a spacefaring species makes us weak." President Song paused, looking out at the faces of humanity's leaders. "They are wrong." The chamber erupted in applause, but Song raised her hand for silence. "We did not come to the stars to kneel before those who were here first. We came to stand among them as equals. If they will not accept us as partners, they will have to face us as opponents." In the Galactic Council war room, the final preparations for military action were taking place. Fleet commanders from a dozen species reported their readiness to teach humanity a lesson about galactic order. "Phase 1 will target their newest colonies," Admiral Kickstar explained. 300 ships will move on New Busan. The humans will see their newest world destroyed and realize the futility of resistance. "And if they do not surrender after Phase 1? Asked Ambassador Kixnil. Queen Zaraseth's buzz carried the sound of satisfaction. "Then we proceed to Phase 2. We destroy their industrial worlds. After that, they will have no choice but to accept our terms." "What about Earth itself?" Velthara asked. "Earth will be spared if they surrender after Phase 2. If not..." Admiral Kickstar's mandibles clicked ominously. "Then we remove the source of the problem permanently." The council representatives nodded their agreement. It seemed like a reasonable plan. Overwhelming force applied gradually, giving humans multiple chances to come to their senses. What they did not understand was that humans had been planning for this moment since their first day in space. Every colony placement, every trade route, every defensive installation had been designed with one goal in mind: survival. The aliens saw rapid expansion and assumed recklessness. They saw industrial growth and assumed waste. They saw military preparation and assumed aggression. They never considered that they might be looking at the most successful survival strategy in galactic history. Dr. Hyejin Kim, humanity's leading expert on alien psychology, finished her final report for the Defense Council. Her analysis was simple. The aliens expected humans to behave like every other species they had encountered. They expected fear, negotiation, eventual submission. "They do not understand," she wrote in her conclusion, "that humans have never learned how to quit. Surrender is not in our vocabulary when survival is at stake." The galaxy was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The news of the defeat at New Busan spread through the Galactic Council like wildfire. 300 ships had attacked the human colony. Only 12 had returned. The survivors spoke of weapons that bent space itself and defenses that turned entire star systems into death traps. High Chancellor Velthara stood before the emergency council session, her crystal form darker than anyone had ever seen it. The light that usually flowed through her body moved slowly, like blood from a wound. The first phase has failed, she announced to the packed chamber. Human resistance was more organized than our intelligence suggested. That was putting it mildly. Admiral Kickstar had been aboard one of the ships that escaped New Busan. His report painted a picture that most council members refused to believe. The humans had not just defended their world, they had turned it into a weapon. They knew we were coming. Admiral Kickstar clicked nervously. Every ship movement, every attack pattern, every weakness in our formations. It was as if they had studied our tactics for years. Impossible, Queen Zaraseth buzzed. They are barely a century into spaceflight. They cannot have that level of strategic knowledge. But they did. Fleet Admiral Jinsu Park stood in the Mars War Council chamber, surrounded by holographic displays showing alien fleet positions across the galaxy. Human intelligence networks had been watching alien military movements for years. Every training exercise, every fleet maneuver, every tactical doctrine had been recorded and analyzed. Phase 2 of their plan is already beginning, Jinsu reported, to the assembled human commanders. They are calling up reserve fleets from every member species. Estimated total force is over 10,000 ships. The number should have been terrifying. Humanity's entire fleet numbered less than 2,000 ships. By any reasonable calculation, they were about to be crushed by overwhelming force. But Jinsu was not concerned about reasonable calculations. He was thinking about unreasonable ones. Dr. Hyejin, your psychological analysis? Dr. Hyejin Kim stepped forward. She had spent months studying alien behavior patterns, communication intercepts, and historical records. Her conclusions would have surprised the council if they had heard them. They are making the same mistake they made at New Busan, she said. They think this is about military force. They think bigger fleets mean certain victory. They do not understand that we are not fighting their kind of war. Explain, said Admiral Wan Shik Li. They fight battles, Hyejin replied. We fight wars. They gather their forces and attack targets. We attack their ability to fight at all. That distinction was about to become very important. While the Council mobilized their massive fleets, humanity launched Operation Silent Thunder. Captain Eugene Choi commanded the stealth ship Whisper in the Dark. Her vessel was one of 50 new ships built using technology the aliens had never seen. Human stealth systems did not just hide from sensors. They made ships effectively invisible to every detection method known to galactic science. Target confirmed, she reported to Fleet Command. Cortex supply convoy, 12 cargo ships, 6 escorts, moving through the Kepler transit corridor as scheduled. The Cortex military was one of the Council's strongest members. Their supply lines fed the growing fleet that was gathering to crush humanity. Those supply lines were about to become a problem. Permission to engage? Eugene asked. Granted. Remember the rules of engagement. No survivors who might report our capabilities. Eugene understood. This was not about killing aliens. This was about making their fleet buildup impossible. But it was also about keeping human advantages secret as long as possible. The attack lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, 18 Cortex ships had simply vanished. No debris field, no distress signals, no evidence that they had ever existed except for the gap in the supply schedule. Similar attacks happened across the galaxy. Delani communication relays went silent without explanation. Vorthak ammunition depots disappeared overnight. Zilani troop transports never reached their destinations. Supreme Commander Thekvar of the Vorthak Empire found himself commanding a coalition that was slowly falling apart. Every day brought new reports of missing ships, failed communications, and supply shortages. How are they doing this? He demanded during a Secure Council military meeting. Our sensors show no human ships in any of these sectors. The answer came from an unexpected source. Researcher Zilmora of the Quillan Archive had been studying human historical records while the military focused on fleet movements. What she found was disturbing. "Commander," she transmitted on an encrypted channel, "I believe I understand what is happening. The humans are not fighting the way we expect." "What do you mean?" "In their history, when a smaller force faced a larger one, they did not meet in direct battle. They attacked supply lines, communication networks, and command structures. They call it asymmetric warfare." Thekvar's response was predictable. "Impossible. Such tactics require precise intelligence and coordination. They cannot have that level of capability." But they did. Intelligence Chief Sujin Kang coordinated human operations from a hidden base in the asteroid fields of the Sol system. Her network of agents, spies, and listening posts covered half the galaxy. She knew where every major alien fleet was located, where they were going, and what they needed to get there. "Status report," she requested from her department heads. "Cortex, ammunition production is down 60%. Reported Agent Coordinator Minwoo Jung. "Their main factories are experiencing mysterious equipment failures." "Delani fleet coordination is breaking down," added communications specialist Ye Jin. "Shin. Half their relay stations are offline. They cannot maintain contact with their scattered forces." "Vorthak troop morale is falling," concluded Psychological Operations Director Jae-hyun Kim. "Their soldiers are starting to believe human forces can appear anywhere without warning." That last point was especially important. Fear was becoming humanity's most effective weapon. Alien crews who had once been eager to punish the upstart, humans now dreaded patrol duty in human space. The psychological impact was exactly what Dr. Hye-jin Kim had predicted. Aliens expected warfare to follow established patterns. Fleets met fleets. The stronger side won, simple and predictable. Instead, they faced an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. Ships vanished without trace. Supplies never arrived. Communications failed at critical moments. Orders could not be transmitted. Reinforcements never showed up. Admiral Kickstar found himself commanding a fleet that existed more on paper than in reality. Ships that should have been under his command were scattered across dozens of systems, unable to communicate with each other or coordinate their movements. "This is impossible," he clicked to his staff officers. "We have superior numbers, superior technology, superior firepower. How can we be losing to a species that barely has any ships?" The answer was in the history books researcher Zilmora had been reading. Humans had perfected the art of making superior forces irrelevant. They did not fight where they were weak. They made their enemies weak where they should have been strong. Captain Seung-ho Park commanded the stealth destroyer Silent Thunder. His mission was typical of human operations during this period. A Trelawney battle group was moving to reinforce the main alien fleet. 47 ships carrying enough firepower to level a planet. They never reached their destination. "Mines deployed," reported Weapons Officer Kyung-min Lee. "Gravity wells established. Communication jamming active." The Trelawney commanders found themselves trapped in a maze of artificial gravity fields, unable to communicate, unable to retreat, unable to advance. One by one, their ships were picked off by weapons they never saw coming. When the Silent Thunder finished its work, the Trilani battle group had ceased to exist. But there was no glorious battle to report, no heroic last stand, just empty space where a fleet used to be. This pattern repeated throughout the galaxy. Alien commanders who expected to face human fleets in honest battle instead found themselves fighting shadows. Supply convoys vanished, communication networks failed, support fleets disappeared. The Council's grand strategy was crumbling, but most of their leaders still did not understand why. Perhaps, suggested Ambassador Kixnil during another emergency session, we should reconsider our approach. The humans seem more capable than we initially believed. Capability is not the issue, Queen Zarazeth buzzed angrily. They are using terrorist tactics, attacking supply lines instead of fighting honorably. This proves they know they cannot win a real battle. She was wrong, but it would take time for the Council to understand their mistake. They were thinking like civilized beings who followed the rules of war. Humans were thinking like survivors, who made their own rules. Fleet Admiral Jin-Soo Park reviewed the latest reports from human operations across the galaxy. The numbers told a clear story. In 6 months of conflict, humanity had lost fewer than 100 ships. The alien coalition had lost over 3,000. Status of their main fleet? He asked his intelligence staff. Scattered across 17. Systems, reported Chief Analyst Da-Un Song. Unable to coordinate effectively, many units are operating independently due to communication failures. Morale, dropping rapidly. Many alien crews are requesting transfers to non-combat duties. Some species are questioning their participation in the coalition. Jin-Soo nodded. This was exactly what human strategy had been designed to achieve. Not victory through superior force, but victory by making superior force irrelevant. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the difference between civilization and survival. 6 months after the peace talks ended, the Galactic Council faced a truth they had not expected. The humans were winning. Chancellor Velthara stood in the Council's main chamber, her crystal form dimmed with exhaustion and something that might have been fear. Around her, representatives from dozens of species listened to reports that sounded more like disaster updates than military briefings. Our combined losses now total 60% of our available forces, she announced, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. Human forces have taken control of 17 star systems and show no signs of stopping their advance. The numbers were bad enough. What made them worse was how the losses had happened. The great alien armada that was supposed to crush humanity had simply melted away piece by piece, convoy by convoy, fleet by fleet. But the most shocking revelation was not military. It was moral. Admiral Wanshik Lee stood on the bridge of the human battleship Determined Peace as it approached the Cortex Fortress world of Kepler Prime. The planet's orbital defenses had been taken offline 3 days ago by human stealth ships. The planet's garrison had surrendered rather than face certain destruction. Now came the part that confused alien commanders more than any human weapon or tactic. "Attention, Cortex defenders," Wanshik transmitted on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Lee of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Your world is now under human protection. All military personnel who wish to surrender will be treated according to the Geneva Conventions and the Seoul Accords." Commander Theklar of the Cortex garrison could not understand what he was hearing. His species had been at war with humans for months. His people had participated in attacks on human colonies. By every rule of galactic warfare, he and his soldiers, should expect execution or slavery. Instead, they were being offered prisoner of war status with full medical care and eventual repatriation. This must be a trick, Theklar told his officers. Humans are primitives, violent. They do not show mercy to enemies. But when the surrender was complete, Theklar discovered that human mercy was not a trick. It was policy. The Cortex prisoners were housed in comfortable facilities. Their wounded received medical treatment that was better than what many of them had received in their own military. They were allowed to communicate with their families. They were given recreational activities and educational opportunities. Most, shocking of all, they were treated with respect. "I do not understand," Theklar said to Admiral Wanshik during a formal meeting between prisoner and captor. "Your people fight with great skill and determination, but you show kindness to those who tried to destroy you. This makes no sense." Wanshik smiled. It was the kind of patient smile a teacher might give to a confused student. "Commander Theklar, your people came to our worlds to conquer us. You believed we were savage and needed to be controlled. But we are not fighting for conquest. We are fighting for the right to exist as free beings in this galaxy. But we are your enemies. You were our enemies because your leaders told you to be. That does not mean you are evil. It means you were following orders you believed were correct." This concept was so foreign to Cortex thinking that Theklar needed several days to process it. In his culture, enemies were destroyed or enslaved. The idea that enemies could become something else was revolutionary. News of human treatment of prisoners spread throughout the galaxy faster than any military report. Species that had joined the coalition expecting to face savage primitives began to question what they had been told. Ambassador Lixander of the Peaceful Worlds Coalition was one of the first to act on these doubts. He sent a secret message to Deputy Minister Sujin Kang, Humanities Intelligence Chief. "Perhaps," the message said carefully, "there is still room for dialogue between reasonable beings." Sujin shared the message with President Yoon-ji Song and the War Council. The response was not what most galactic leaders would have expected. "Tell Ambassador Lixander that Earth is always open to genuine peace talks," President Song decided, "but make it clear that we will not return to the old system. Any peace must recognize humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs." The secret negotiations that followed revealed something the Council had not expected. Humans were not interested in conquest or revenge. They wanted something much more dangerous to the established order. They wanted change. Dr. Min Kyung Song had been working throughout the war on projects that had nothing to do with weapons or battles. Her research teams included human and alien scientists working together on medical advances, agricultural improvements, and technology that could benefit all species. When Ambassador Lixander visited one of these joint research facilities, he was amazed by what he found. Humans and aliens working side by side, sharing knowledge, solving problems together. It was everything the old council system claimed to promote but had never actually achieved. "This is what we could have," Dr. Song explained to the alien diplomat. "Instead of the strong ruling the weak, we could have cooperation. Instead of stagnation, we could have progress. Instead of fear, we could have hope." The research facility was not unique. Similar projects existed on dozens of human worlds. While the war raged in space, humans were building the foundations of a better future. This vision began to attract support from unexpected sources: young aliens who were tired of the old ways, scientists who wanted to share knowledge instead of hoarding it, ordinary citizens who dreamed of a galaxy where cooperation was stronger than domination. but the old guard was not ready to give up power. Queen Zaraseth called an emergency meeting of the council's inner circle. Her compound eyes reflected the light of holographic displays showing human advances across the galaxy. "This is worse than military defeat," she buzzed angrily. "They are spreading ideas, dangerous ideas about equality and cooperation. If these ideas take hold, our entire system of order will collapse." High Chancellor Velthara agreed. The humans must be stopped, not just defeated, but eliminated as a source of instability. Their very existence threatens everything we have built, but eliminating humans was proving more difficult than anyone had expected. Every attack on human positions met with devastating resistance. Every attempt to cut off human supply lines failed. Every effort to isolate human worlds resulted in more alien losses. Archivist Prime Nexthul of the Historical Preservation Syndicate finally provided the Council with the analysis they needed to hear, but not the one they wanted. "I have completed my study of human military history," the ancient being announced during a closed council session. "The results explain everything we have experienced." "Proceed," Velthara said coldly. "This species has survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. They have survived asteroid impacts that would have destroyed most civilizations. They have survived plagues that killed half their population. They have survived constant warfare among themselves for their entire recorded history. We know they are survivors. What is your point?" "My point," Nexthul said slowly, "is that they did not expand rapidly through the galaxy because they were reckless. They expanded because they understand survival better than any species in known history. They spread across many worlds because they know that concentrating in one place means death when disaster strikes." The chamber was silent as the implications sank in. "They have been preparing for this war since their first day in space," Nexthul continued. "Every colony placement was strategic. Every trade agreement gathered intelligence. Every diplomatic contact studied our weaknesses. We thought we were dealing with primitive newcomers. In reality, we were dealing with the most successful survivors in galactic history." "Are you saying we cannot defeat them?" Admiral Kickstar clicked nervously. "I am saying that this species has survived things that would have destroyed us. They have adapted to environments that would kill us. They have overcome challenges that we cannot imagine, and we tried to make them kneel." Queen Zaraseth's buzz grew angry. "They are still just one species. We are dozens. We have more ships, more resources, more experience." "Do we?" Nexthul asked quietly. "Look at the reports. How many of our ships are actually operational? How many of our supply lines remain intact? How many of our allies still trust our leadership?" The questions hung in the air like accusations. The truth was that the Great Coalition was falling apart. Species that had joined the war effort were quietly withdrawing their forces. Supply lines that had seemed secure were proving vulnerable to human attacks. Communication networks that had worked for centuries were failing when they were needed most. Meanwhile, human forces were growing stronger. Every battle taught them more about alien weaknesses. Every captured technology was reverse-engineered and improved. Every day of war gave them new advantages. Fleet Admiral Jinsu Park reviewed the latest intelligence reports from his command center on Mars. The numbers told a story that would have seemed impossible 6 months ago. Enemy fleet. "Strength is down to 30% of original levels," reported his chief of staff. "Most remaining forces are scattered and unable to coordinate effectively." "Morale in alien units?" "Critical levels across most species. Requests for transfer to non-combat duties have increased by 400%. Political situation? 12. Species have officially withdrawn from the coalition. 8 more are conducting secret negotiations with our diplomatic teams. Jinsu nodded. The war was not over, but its outcome was becoming clear. Humanity had proven that they could not be conquered by force. More importantly, they had proven that they offered something better than conquest. They offered partnership. The galaxy was beginning to understand that the choice was not between human rule and alien rule. It was between the old system of domination and a new system of cooperation. And cooperation, it turned out, was much more attractive than most leaders had expected. 1 year after walking away from the peace talks, Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim found himself back in the Galactic Council chambers, but everything had changed. The Great Hall that had once been filled with representatives from dozens of proud species now held less than half that number. Empty seats marked the places where former coalition members had once sat. Some had withdrawn from the war. Others had switched sides entirely. A few had simply stopped participating in galactic politics altogether. The humans sat at the same simple metal table they had used before, but now it did not look small compared to the alien platforms. Now it looked like the center of attention. Next to Hyun-Woo sat Fleet Admiral Da-eun Park. Her uniform bore the decorations of a dozen successful campaigns, but her expression was calm and patient. She had not come to gloat over victory. She had come to build something better than victory. Across from them, the remnants of the once mighty coalition looked very different than they had a year ago. High Chancellor Velthara's crystal form was cracked and dim. Queen Zaraseth's compound eyes showed the dullness of defeat. Admiral Kickstar's mandibles clicked nervously with every sound. "The war is over," Hyun-Woo said simply. His voice carried. No triumph, no anger, no satisfaction, just a statement of fact. The question now is what comes next. President Yoon Ji-ho had made humanity's position clear in her broadcast to both human and alien worlds the day before. The message had been simple. Humanity did not want conquest. They wanted recognition. They did not seek to rule others. They sought to stand as equals. "We propose a new paradigm," Hyun-Woo continued, placing a data tablet on the table between them. "Not one based on domination or hierarchy, but on mutual respect and cooperation." The human terms were displayed on holographic screens throughout the chamber. Even former enemies had to admit they were surprisingly moderate. Damaged infrastructure would be repaired jointly. Prisoners would be exchanged. Territorial disputes would be resolved through negotiation rather than force. "This is what victory looks like for humans?" asked Ambassador Kixnil of the Trelawney Federation. His tree-like form swayed with what might have been confusion. "You could demand tribute, territory, submission. Instead, you offer partnership." Fleet Admiral Da-eun leaned forward. "Ambassador Kixnil, we never wanted to conquer anyone. We wanted to be left alone to build our own futures. When that was denied to us, we fought for the right to exist as free beings. Now that we have that right, we want to help others claim the same freedom." It was a concept that many alien leaders still struggled to understand. In their experience, victory meant domination. The strong ruled the weak. Winners took everything. Losers lost everything. Humans offered something different. They offered the idea that everyone could win. Research Director Min Kyung-song presented her report to the mixed human-alien audience. Throughout the war, her teams had continued working on joint projects with alien scientists. The results were impressive. Medical advances developed through human-alien cooperation have eliminated 3 previously incurable diseases. she reported. Agricultural techniques shared between species have increased food production by 40% on 17 worlds. Technology exchanges have improved life quality for millions of beings across dozens of star systems. This was the real revolution. Not military victory, but proof that cooperation worked better than competition. While the old guard had been focused on maintaining their power, humans and progressive aliens had been building a better future. The evidence was everywhere. Young aliens who had worked with human teams spoke enthusiastically about shared projects and mutual learning. Scientists from multiple species published joint research papers that advanced knowledge faster than any single species could manage alone. Trade agreements based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation created prosperity for everyone involved. But the old system did not surrender easily. Queen Zaraseth's buzz grew louder as she addressed the chamber. You speak of cooperation and equality. But what happens when disagreements arise? What happens when interests conflict? Your system assumes that all beings are reasonable and good-natured. History teaches us otherwise. Admiral Dayun smiled. Queen Zaraseth, you are absolutely correct. Disagreements will arise. Interests will conflict. Some beings will act unreasonably. That is exactly why we need a system based on law and mutual respect, rather than on the power of the strongest. And who enforces these laws? Admiral Kickstar clicked. Who decides what is reasonable? Who stops the unreasonable beings? We all do, Hyunwoo replied. Together. That is what cooperation means. Not that we will always agree, but that we will work together to solve problems instead of fighting over who gets to make the decisions alone. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was becoming clear. The old system had failed. It had failed to maintain peace. It had failed to promote prosperity. It had failed to create the stability it claimed to protect. Meanwhile, the new system was already working. Former enemies were becoming partners. Ancient rivals were finding common ground. Species that had never communicated were sharing knowledge and resources. The turning point came from an unexpected source. Archivist Prime Nex Thule, who had provided the Council with their first real understanding of human nature, stood to address the chamber one final time. I have studied the rise and fall of civilizations for over 1,000 years, the ancient being said. I have seen empires that lasted millennia crumble in decades. I have watched species that seemed unstoppable fade into memory. The chamber fell silent. Even former enemies respected Nex Thule's wisdom. The pattern is always the same. Civilizations grow strong through cooperation and mutual support. They begin to decline when cooperation is replaced by domination. They fall when domination becomes more important than the welfare of their people. Nex Thule turned toward the human delegation. Humans offer us a chance to break that pattern, not because they are perfect, but because they understand something we had forgotten. Strength comes from unity, not from control. High Chancellor Velthara's crystal form flickered with what might have been resignation. And if we refuse this offer? If we choose to maintain the old ways? Then you will continue to decline, Hyunwoo said simply. Your species will grow weaker as others grow stronger through cooperation. Your young people will leave to join societies that offer them better opportunities. Your best minds will seek partners who value their contributions. And eventually you will find yourselves alone in a galaxy that has moved beyond you. It was not a threat. It was an observation. The galaxy was already changing. Species that embraced cooperation were thriving. those that clung to the old ways, were being left behind. The vote, when it finally came, was closer than many had expected, but it was decisive. The Galactic Council officially dissolved itself. In its place, the Human Galactic Cooperative was established. The new organization was different in fundamental ways. Instead of a few powerful species making decisions for everyone else, each member species had an equal voice. Instead of maintaining order through force, disputes were resolved through negotiation and mediation. Instead of hoarding knowledge and resources, members shared them for mutual benefit. Not every species joined immediately. Queen Zaraseth led a group of holdouts who established their own alliance based on the old principles, but their influence shrank with each passing month as more species chose cooperation over domination. Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim smiled as he signed the final documents establishing the new galactic order. The same pen that had signed humanity's withdrawal from the old peace talks now signed their entry into a better one. "You realize," Fleet Admiral Da-un said quietly, "that this is harder than fighting a war. Building something is always more difficult than destroying it." "Yes," Hyun-Woo replied, "but it is also more rewarding." 5 years later, Director Sung-Ho Bae of the Interspecies Development Council stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station. Below him, human and alien workers labored side by side on construction projects that would have been impossible for any single species to complete. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human industrial techniques, Trelane, biotechnology, Quillen information systems, and Cortex metallurgy had combined to create something greater than the sum of its parts. "Status report," he requested from his mixed species staff. 17 joint colonies are now operational, reported Chief Coordinator Yuki Tanaka. Food production is up 60% across all member worlds. Medical research has eliminated 12 major diseases. Cultural exchange programs are operating in 43 systems. Any problems? The usual disputes over resource allocation and territorial boundaries. Nothing that cannot be resolved through the standard mediation process. Sung-Ho nodded. The new system was not perfect. No system ever was. But it was working. More importantly, it was growing. Every month brought new species asking to join the cooperative. Every year brought new advances made possible by shared knowledge and resources. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth that humans had always known. Survival was not about being the strongest, it was about being adaptable. And the most adaptable societies were those that embraced change rather than fearing it. Looking out at the stars, Sung-Ho reflected on how far they had all come. A year ago, humanity had been seen as dangerous newcomers who needed to be controlled. Now they were recognized as partners who had shown the galaxy a better way forward. The best part was that this was just the beginning. With dozens of species working together, sharing knowledge and resources, the possibilities were limitless. They could explore farther, build greater wonders, solve problems that had seemed impossible. Most importantly, they could ensure that everyone had their place among the stars. Humanity had taught the galaxy that sometimes the best way to win a war was to create a peace so attractive that everyone wanted to be part of it.